Hello, everyone, and welcome to the final segment of this series on the immune system. Today, we're going to be going over the fourth section, disruptions in the immune system that can elicit or exacerbate a disease. So, as the book sort of states here, we're just going to be talking about ways in which the immune system is not a fail-safe, as the book says. Just ways that your immune system can overreact, not function properly, etc. Talk about allergic, autoimmune, and immunodeficiency disorders in this section. And the first thing we're going to talk about is allergies. So, allergies are a hypersensitive response to allergens. Most common allergies involve antibodies of the immunoglobulin E class. So, as we talked about, that's one of the 5 gene types for the B cells. So, it said hay fever, for example, occurs when they secrete the IgE antibodies on the surface of pollen grains. So we'll see that in the figure when we go down to it. So, to start the description of what we're going to see, IgE antibodies attached to mast cells in connective tissue. Now, pollen grains that enter later, so a second exposure, they attach to the antigen binding sites of the IgE antibodies. So this can make adjacent links. Actually, I'm just going to go down to the figure now. So, visual representation of what we were just talking about. So the IgE antibodies attached to a mast cell. You get a second exposure to the allergen, and the allergen attaches adjacent antibodies, and this releases chemicals and molecules called histamine. The problem with the release of histamines is that they cause the symptoms that are common to allergies. So where is it? Sorry, right here. These chemicals bring about typical allergy symptoms, including sneezing, runny nose, teary eyes, and smooth muscle contractions in the lungs that can inhibit effective breathing. So this is where the drugs we know as antihistamines come from. They block, so they inhibit receptors for the histamine to reduce the allergy symptoms and the inflammation. Sometimes acute allergic responses can lead to something called anaphylactic shock. So inflammatory chemicals released from the mast cells trigger constriction of bronchioles in your lungs and the sudden dilation of peripheral blood cells, which causes a great drop in blood pressure. Anaphylactic shock can kill someone within minutes due to the inability to breathe. And substances that can cause anaphylactic shock, these include bee venom, penicillin, peanuts, and shellfish. So I'm sure some of us know people with great allergies to things like these. They have severe hypersensitivities and usually carry around epinephrine. Some people might know this to be the chemical in an EpiPen. That's what you inject into someone when they're having an allergic reaction. And the epinephrine counteracts the allergic response by constricting the blood vessels that the histamines are trying to dilate and reduce swelling in the throat and relaxing the muscles to help with breathing. So there's a figure in another chapter about that. If you want to go look at that, I might go to it later. Actually, you know what? We got time. Why don't we go to it? This will be a shorter video, so let's see where it is. Okay, here it is. So, get that molecule epinephrine, goes to some sort of beta receptor. Sorry, I haven't read any of this. So it can release glucose, you get increased blood glucose, it can relax cells, increasing blood vessel flow, can also constrict blood vessels to decrease in flow to the intestines. So this must be different. This has an alpha receptor. If you guys want to read up on this, I know you can't see it, but my book says it's page 998. But alright, let's get back to what we were doing. Got to actually minimize this. So we were on the next page. Sorry about that. Alright, and so that does it for the allergy section. So now we're going to move on to autoimmune diseases. So, in autoimmune diseases, the immune system is active against particular molecules of the body. So earlier in the series, I believe it was the first video when we talked about how does the immune system distinguish between self and non-self. Well, we went over plenty of things that could describe how it determines that, but if it fails to do so properly, that's what causes an autoimmune disease. The body attacks itself. So, example they give is lupus, in which the immune system antibodies attack histones and DNA. So, histones, like we had talked about in class, if anyone watching doesn't know, a histone is what DNA wraps around. So, it's just a molecule that it wraps around. So lupus can cause skin rashes, fever, arthritis, kidney dysfunction. Other immune diseases include insulin-producing beta cells of the pancreas and type 1 diabetes, myelin sheaths that encase many neurons, and multiple sclerosis. So, actually do research here on campus with Dr. Rosa in neuroscience, and so we actually study the effects of myelin sheaths in multiple sclerosis. So myelin is it's mainly just fat and water, but it helps speed up impulses in neurons in brain cells. So if this is eroded, then the impulses don't fire at the correct speed. So this multiple sclerosis is very serious autoimmune disease. So I mean, lupus and type 1 diabetes are also, but just extra information about the examples. Heredity, gender, and environment all influence susceptibility to autoimmune disorders. So members of certain families show increased susceptibility. In addition, many autoimmune diseases afflict females more often than males. Women are 9 times as likely to suffer from lupus and 2 to 3 times as likely to develop rheumatoid arthritis. So the figure here shows you how damaging rheumatoid arthritis can be. It says that this gender bias, as well as the rise in autoimmune frequency, is an area of active research and debate. So, like I was saying in the last video about the mysteries surrounding how a pregnant mother, their immune system doesn't attack a fetus, that's also unknown and being researched. These things are very cool to me, and I hope you guys think so as well. But anyway, we'll move on to exertion, stress, and the immune system. So, as it says, many forms of exertion and stress influence the immune system function. So moderate exercise can help improve immune system function. But exercise to the point of exhaustion leads to more frequent infections and more severe symptoms. So I talked about marathon runners. On average, they get less sick than people who are training, but they get sick after the long haul race. Similarly, psychological stress has been shown to disrupt immune system regulation by altering the interplay of hormonal, nervous, and immune systems. So we can just check this out real quick. Figure 45.20. Wow, this is a lot. Whew. So, just an overview of what it's saying. If you want to read all this and look at it, it's just you can disrupt the homeostatic balances in your immune system. So, for anyone who doesn't know, homeostasis is just the interplay of everything, keeping a sort of check and balance system in your body to keep you healthy, happy. So let's go back. Better pull this up. Oops, went too far. So as you see, we'll talk about immunodeficiencies next on the next page, and I actually think, yeah, the last thing it says is that rest is also important. People who get less than 7 hours of sleep get sick 3 times as often as people who get more than 8 hours. So, autoimmune attacks itself. Immunodeficiency is a disorder in which the immune system response to antigens is defective or absent. So, as it says, autoimmune deficiencies can lead to frequent and recurrent infections. So the different types, you have inborn autoimmune deficiency, which can result from genetic or developmental defects. So the example it gives is severe combined autoimmune deficiency in newborns. It makes them susceptible to infections such as pneumonia and meningitis that can cause death in infancy. Later on, treatments can include bone marrow and stem cell transplants. Later in life, you can be exposed to chemicals or biological agents that can cause acquired immunodeficiency. So, drugs used to fight autoimmune diseases can suppress the immune system, which can lead to an immunodeficient state. Certain cancers can also suppress the immune system, especially Hodgkin's disease, which damages the lymphatic system. Probably the most famous immunodeficiency is acquired immune deficiency syndrome, which is AIDS, which we will talk about HIV and AIDS in the next section. But as you may have heard, some people say AIDS doesn't kill you. What it does is it weakens your immune system so much that other little things can kill you. So when someone has AIDS, they can get the flu, and the flu can kill them. So immunodeficiency diseases just they can weaken someone to the point that a pathogen can come in and be fatal to an organism. So on to the next section, evolution and adaptations of pathogens. This just describes how, like humans have evolved, so have pathogens to block immune responses, as we had previously discussed shortly. But now we're going to get into antigenic variation. So what antigenic variation is that a pathogen can alter how it appears, the epitope that the immune system has made memory cells for upon a second exposure. If the pathogen alters the epitopes that they're no longer the same, it can reaffect the host without the rapid secondary response. The example it gives causes sleeping sickness. I'm not even going to try. Trypanosomiasis, maybe. Periodically switches at random among 1,000 different versions. So that's pretty crazy. So I was actually just about to say this. The flu. The reason people get flu shots every year is because new strands of influenza come during the flu seasons every year. So you can get reinfected every year because it's a different kind of flu. And that's due to this antigenic variation. I'm sure some of us in class are old enough to remember in 2009 the H1N1 flu caused a worldwide outbreak. Fortunately, they rapidly developed a vaccine. And like we had discussed in, I believe, the last video, this was probably an inoculation, so a small additive of a non-potent sample of the H1N1 might have been in the vaccine. Anyway, on to latency. Latency is simply when something like a virus comes into the immune system but is not active. It remains dormant so that the response does not kill the virus. So the example they give is herpes simplex viruses. Type 1 causes oral, type 2 causes genital. But because the neurons express relatively few MHC molecules, the infected cells are inefficient at presenting antigens to circulating lymphocytes. So because they're dormant, it's hard to get rid of those. So this scientific skills exercise, I'm not going to go over. It's just, if you want to go over it, if you have a book or you want to pause, I'll slowly scroll down for you. But sorry, but we're not going to go over that. This just talks about retrovirus transfer from infected mothers can get HIV. So, which we're going to talk about HIV. Human immunodeficiency virus, which causes AIDS. So, when HIV infects the body, it infects the helper T cells that we have talked about, and that binding accessory protein CD4 that binds the helper T cells to the rest of the. I think it binds to the MHC molecule or the antigen. Actually, let's go back and look. So it binds the helper T cell to, the MHC molecule. Let's go back quickly. I should stop doing this. But anyway. Infects cell types with low levels of CD4, such as macrophages and brain cells. Inside cells, the HIV RNA genome is reverse transcribed, and the product DNA is integrated into the host cell's genome. So the virus can direct the production of new viruses, which is scary. So, reflecting back on HIV, it lays dormant in latency. Well, we'll use this figure, but everything described in this section is pretty much, we can just go down this figure. So why HIV persists, it lays latent, concentration goes down, it hides from the immune system, and then as the book discusses, as you can see here by the black line, the helper T cell concentration, as it persists, it can destroy your immune system, and that's what leads to acquired immune deficiency syndrome. So this is as I accidentally talked about previously, AIDS patients, it's not the HIV itself that causes death, it's things that they are now more susceptible to that healthy individuals would not die from. This just talks about how easily HIV is transferred from individuals that have sexual relations with each other that are infected with HIV. And finally, last thing we're going to talk about is cancer and immunity. So this section talks about when adaptive immunity is inactivated, frequency of cancer is increased dramatically. It's 20,000 times greater. Or, sorry, Kaposi sarcoma is 20,000 times greater for untreated AIDS patients. Scientists have identified. Oh, sorry, I should talk about the cancer, or the immune system rather, cannot detect that the cancer is growing because it's the organism self being replicated, not a non-self entity, but says about 20% of all human cancers have viruses associated with them, and the immune system can determine one of these 6 viruses that scientists have found. So let's just talk about rapid progress. Continues, but in 2006, the release of a vaccine derived from human papillomavirus, HPV, marked a major victory against cervical cancer, as well as other cancers that can still affect sexually active men or women. So there is progress being made, but that is going to do it for Chapter 43, the immune system. I thank you all for joining me. If you want to go over summary of the chapter, everything we've talked about in the last 4 videos, including this one, there's seems like 2 pages on it, but I thank you all for joining me, and I've hoped you learned a thing or two, and I'll see you all later. Take care.